was king, but now that we're shifting from this 1 gig to 10 gig plus, I mean, it's already 10 gig plus, right? You see some of these boxes and what they're doing in the chassis.
Is it a plus size Ethernet?
Yeah, 20, 40 gigs. But all of a sudden, setting up a fiber channel storage fabric and zoning things out, I mean, you don't have to do all that. And you don't have to do all these crazy IQNs and things like this, right? NFS is pretty darn easy, right? And so it's very attractive in the 10 gig world.
Yeah.
And even like the fiber channel that's 8 gig, right, or that might be 16 gig, like even VMware's, we throttle it back to 8 gig. So it's not really 16 gigs. I don't know if a lot of people know that, and we're not there yet all the way up to 16 gig, but it's just kind of interesting that, I just think that 10 gig NFS is, it's more cost effective, it's simpler to configure. We're starting to see some really big players look at NFS.
So I would put it, I think Nick makes very valid points. I would put it in, there's two ways to approach this situation. The first one is you can play Switzerland and go, hey, the hypervisor's multi-protocol, the storage array from NAS multi-protocol, who cares, and move on. That's got some merit, right? If you've got a customer who's biased or a customer who has a sunken infrastructure that they need to leverage, sure. But a point that Nick touched on I want to push forward on, which is NetApp for 6 years now has been doing performance comparison testing with protocols and hypervisors that compare fiber channel, iSCSI, NFS, FCOE, and the latest publication was just over a year old. It's technical report 3856, and basically says if 8 gig fiber channel is your baseline, all of their combinations of protocols operate within 0.2 percentage point in both throughput, overhead, in terms of CPU overhead and latency. And that's plus or minus. The only outlier that is iSCSI. iSCSI suffers about a 7% performance penalty, but you're talking at the hundreds of megabytes a second throughput level. So it's more than capable for all customers. So from that perspective, don't worry about performance. What we're seeing on our side in the NetApp install base is greater than half of our virtualization customers deploy on NAS protocols, being NFS with a number of the hypervisors, and then there's obviously going to be a big push for SMB3 with Hyper-V 3. But when you actually dig into the data even further, our large customers are almost exclusively NFS. So anybody at scale goes to NAS, and they go there simply because it's way easier. It's much simpler. I'm dealing with files, not SCSI devices. I now get a native protocol for managing files. In terms of your intelligence, that you were requesting about, the gentleman in the back was making a comment about, like, I'd like some more intelligence in the protocol. Unfortunately, NFS 3, version 3 is the protocol that we have in the majority of the platforms today. Yeah. I think with Microsoft and SMB3, which if you haven't read it, is redesigned just for virtualization and virtualization workloads. It's got intelligence in the backup space, routing space, link aggregation, link failover, link prioritization, copy offload. Just in the storage protocol, right? It's probably the most advanced storage protocol, and particularly for server virtualization and desktop virtualization workloads than anything else out there. I think Microsoft's success there will probably push the rest of the platform vendors to move to a PNFS model.
In the shift to 10 gig, which we're seeing right now.
Now, let me come back real quick, which is the last point, which was, we're NetApp. You say, well, you're NetApp, you've got a background in NAS. That would make sense why your customers are NAS. Maybe you're biased. Gartner, IDC, and Forrester report have all forecasted that by 2015, the virtual infrastructure, whether it's desktop or server, the majority of the workloads will all be on NAS protocols versus block. And that makes a lot of sense for just, again, as we said, simplicity and scale. So again, you can be Switzerland and say, I don't care, or you can have a customer who says, look, I want to build this out. Maybe today I'm just starting with desktop. Where should I go? I would go for simplicity and just grow into it.
So I think the other place where this is interesting, with Citrix, is not only do we have a lot of deployments on Zen Desktop and Zen App with NFS and NetApp on the back end, as we move forward with you guys with ShareFile, this becomes an obvious place of tying integration. We've been working with some of you guys in the field on some joint opportunities, and I'll let Vaughn talk about kind of the value there with the ShareFile implementation.
Oh yeah, thank you very much for ShareFile. I love that product. We have some strategic opportunities together in the market because this whole concept of cloud enabling file shares is hot. There's lots of products in that space, and one of the capabilities that I love about ShareFile is it allows us to have you come into accounts where we tend to own a lot of the desktop or the home directory space in a lot of accounts globally, Allows you guys to come in and without migrating data, set the customer, get them up and running, right? It's a very complementary solution, so it should allow for a strong partnership with us to come together, to go to market together, where a number of other technology partners with their solutions, they want to move the data off the NetApp and into their construct. And so there's some conflict there, potential conflict that you could take advantage of that we would love to help you with to partner. And again, the no data migration, I mean, customer home directories in large environments start to run into the petabytes of data, multi-petabytes. There's nothing better than setting up share file and just saying, go ahead, Mr. Customer, you don't have to move your data to start using this product.
So as we wrap up here at this last myth, are there any questions from the audience on myth number 4?
Sandnaz?
I'll throw one out. So,
Hold on, got a mic?
Mike. All right. So, Nick, back on your previous discussion before when you were talking about thin provisioning, like with MCS versus
Yeah.
block level versus
You
file
threw the
level.
one up to the hoop here. I'm just going to dunk it. Thank you. I was going to kind of talk about a little bit about that. Let
so
me see if it
them
answers your
saying
question.
that basically that Fiber Channel is going to fall
Yeah.
off for virtualization, and so
Especially at Citrix, we like NFS. Why? Because it's
yeah.
one of the when we're using Zen Server, it's the only sparse shared storage repository that we support that allows us to thin provision with MCS if we're using that. That's very important. If we're using Fiber Channel or iSCSI, we use LVM. It's a thick disk. So that's why there's a white paper that was out that NetApp actually says Citrix recommends NFS for Zen Desktop. That's why. It's easy and it supports thin provisioning. The other reason why, which kind of myth number 5 I was going to throw out there is maybe the bad why we don't like NFS. It's a myth PBS can't cache with NFS or CIFS, any file-based protocol. That's true by default. It doesn't cache the bits. It'll go back over the network and retrieve the same bits over and over and over again, even though it's in system cache of PBS. But all you got to do is just tune a couple registry keys, namely opportunistic locking, and all of a sudden I can use NFS and cache. A lot of people don't know that, but if you Google Dan Allen's article on CIFS store tuning or whatever it's called for PBS, you'll see the reg keys document that makes NFS or CIFS work with PBS. That's so important.
That's very cool.
So,
what about SMB3? Is that going to change anything with that?
I haven't looked and played with SMB3 with PBS yet, but we can do the same thing with CIFS or SMB today. It's actually the same reg keys, works the same way with NFS. We can make it cache.
Maybe with Microsoft's new version, that negates needing to do the registry.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't tested it yet with PBS.
Hurry up.
All right. Right after this.
I like that. He signed you time. You get an hour.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Well, again, thank you guys. I appreciate it. We'll be hanging around here for the next half hour. If you have any other questions, come up to any of the folks here and ask them, or Kevin and myself if you're looking to kind of engage with your counterparts over at Citrix out in the field. Again, thank you guys for inviting us out here.
Yeah, thank you for the